Hi there, you are welcome. As we continue to update you on revolutionary events, Donald Trump, the newly elected President of the United States, has a history of diverging from traditional Western approaches, including withdrawing from or reducing funding for international institutions during his previous presidency. Trump made unilateral decisions to exit or limit U.S. involvement in various organizations, even those headquartered in the U.S. Notably, he withdrew the U.S. from the World Health Organization, citing criticism over its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and concerns about alleged excessive influence by China. This move held significance, especially given the WHO's leadership and presence in New York. Trump also removed the U.S. from the Paris Climate Accord, arguing that it imposed excessive economic constraints. His decision to cut funding from the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, which aids Palestinian refugees, marked a significant shift in U.S. policy on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Additionally, Trump withdrew U.S. support for the Iran nuclear deal and reinstated sanctions on Iran despite the agreement's multilateral nature, involving several U.S. allies. Trump's stance on NATO has sparked concerns, with signs he may pursue major changes or possibly withdraw from the organization if other members do not meet favorable terms. What is NATO? Formed in 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization was established to address post-World War II tensions between Western European nations and the United States regarding Soviet expansion and the spread of communism. The organization sought to create a security alliance to confront these threats. On April 4th, 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty was signed in Washington, D.C., bringing together 12 founding nations: Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Article 5 of the treaty, a mutual defense clause, states that an armed attack on one member is considered an attack on all, a principle that has remained central. During the Cold War, NATO played a key role in coordinating Western defense against the Soviet Union, developing a unified military command structure under the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe. NATO expanded, welcoming Greece and Turkey in 1952 and West Germany in 1955. In response, the Soviet Union formed the Warsaw Pact in 1955, creating an Eastern Bloc alliance opposing NATO. NATO focused on deterring Soviet aggression through military exercises and nuclear deterrence until the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact in 1991. Since then, NATO's mission has evolved from countering the USSR to addressing broader security issues. In 1994, NATO initiated the Partnership for Peace project, encouraging former Eastern Bloc countries to collaborate for European stability. Please consider supporting our work if you enjoy it. We welcome your feedback and criticism in the comments section to help us grow. We appreciate your support over recent years. NATO is increasingly focusing on new security issues, such as cyber threats, terrorism, and hybrid warfare. Following Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and its support for separatist movements in eastern Ukraine, NATO was compelled to reassess and strengthen its defensive posture, particularly in Eastern Europe. These actions by Russia raised concerns within NATO about potential threats to the sovereignty and security of its Eastern European member states. In response, NATO launched a series of strategic initiatives aimed at bolstering its eastern flank to deter further Russian aggression and reassure allies in the region. A core element of NATO's response has been the establishment of Enhanced Forward Presence (EFP) forces, consisting of multinational battalions stationed in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. These battalions, led by NATO allies such as the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, and Canada, include forces from multiple NATO countries. The presence of these multinational units demonstrates NATO's solidarity and serves as a credible deterrent against any potential aggression. These forces are not designed for large-scale offensive operations. Rather, they act as a tripwire in the event of an attack, signaling that any aggression would instantly involve multiple NATO countries and trigger a strong alliance response. In addition to these battalion deployments, NATO has enhanced its capacity to respond to hybrid threats, activities that fall below the threshold of traditional warfare but still aim to destabilize and undermine countries. Hybrid threats may include cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, economic coercion, and the use of irregular forces. To counter these threats, NATO has developed specialized task forces and established intelligence-sharing mechanisms among member states. The alliance has also invested in cyber defense and public communication strategies to combat disinformation, which is often used to influence public opinion and create discord. NATO's reinforced presence in Eastern Europe is thus multifaceted, involving both ground forces and a comprehensive approach to counter hybrid warfare tactics that Russia has used in the past. This strategy acts as both a practical defense measure and a psychological reassurance to NATO's Eastern European members, underscoring the alliance's commitment to collective security in the face of a complex and evolving set of security challenges. NATO has strengthened its cybersecurity measures and developed rapid response forces. The alliance has steadily expanded, with North Macedonia becoming the 30th member in 2020 and Finland joining in 2023, partly in response to Russia's actions in Ukraine. Sweden's NATO membership is currently pending and has considerable support from allies. NATO's new strategic concepts address emerging challenges. NATO's 31 member nations, with Sweden poised to become the 32nd, have increased defense spending, with many reaching or nearing the target of 2% of GDP. Global concerns include China's expanding influence, cyber threats, and climate change. These global tensions underscore the importance of burden sharing within the alliance. NATO's forward-looking NATO 2030 program aims to adapt to a rapidly changing world, encompassing technological advancements, hybrid warfare, and emerging crises. During his 2016 presidential campaign, Donald Trump criticized NATO, particularly the defense spending of member nations and the U.S.'s role in the organization. He questioned NATO's effectiveness against terrorism and condemned member countries for not contributing sufficiently to defense expenses, warning that the U.S. might not defend allies who did not fulfill their obligations. At the 2017 NATO summit, President Trump criticized 23 of the 28 member countries for failing to meet the 2% GDP defense spending target, calling it unfair to American taxpayers. He reiterated his demand for increased defense expenditure from NATO allies and even suggested a 4% GDP target during his 2020 campaign. In a February 2024 rally, Trump again criticized NATO, asserting that the U.S. shoulders an unfair burden. He threatened to withdraw if allies did not improve defense funding, and reportedly warned a NATO leader that if their country failed to meet defense expenditure targets, he would not protect them, suggesting that Russia could take whatever actions it wanted. NATO officials have voiced concerns about Trump's emphasis on the need for member nations to meet defense spending commitments. Trump has previously criticized European allies for their financial contributions and implied that U.S. support may depend on these nations fulfilling their obligations. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte congratulated Donald Trump on his election and expressed optimism about maintaining a strong alliance, advocating for peace through strength. Currently, 2/3 of NATO nations allocate at least 2% of their GDP to defense. Rutte looks forward to working with Trump to uphold the alliance's stability. However, Trump has questioned NATO's automatic defense commitment under Article 5 of the treaty, particularly for countries not meeting defense spending targets, signaling a potential shift in U.S. involvement. European leaders are concerned about Trump's stance, as it could lead to reduced U.S. participation and challenges within NATO. Consequently, European countries are considering increasing defense budgets and bolstering military capabilities to ensure regional security. While Trump's approach to NATO remains uncertain, he may seek substantial changes, or even a U.S. exit if he cannot reach an agreement with other members. His campaign promise to negotiate a settlement in the Russia-Ukraine conflict could create tensions with NATO allies wary of such an approach. The outcome of this complex relationship remains uncertain, and time will reveal its impact.